Hey everyone, so today we're going to be jumping in to take a closer look and talk a bit about V Rising. This is an upcoming open world vampire themed survival game being developed by Stunlock Studios. The title was first revealed back in May of this year with the release of a fairly vague cinematic trailer. It had some narration setting the stage for the universe, but not really telling us much about the game. In the description, we could see it was categorized as an open world survival game where you can build a castle, hunt for blood, and compete for world domination, all of which is pretty vague. However, heading on over to the game's Steam page did give us a few more specifics. They say here that in V Rising, you will awaken as a weakened vampire, hunt for blood in nearby settlements to regain strength while hiding from the scorching sun. You'll have to rebuild your castle, convert humans into servants to raise an empire, make allies online, fend off holy soldiers, and wage war against other players. So that was kind of their high-level overview and description, and it does sound pretty interesting. Now, to go along with this, we have gotten various screenshots showing the game's top-down perspective, which is quite similar to some of their prior work, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Now, further digging did reveal a few bullet points of details covering some of the big features in the game. So they say it's going to be set in a gothic open world, which you'll explore, that's teeming with these mythical beings and dangers. You'll travel through areas like lush forest, open countryside, and dark dungeons to discover valuable resources, all of which can be done solo, or as you'll be coming across other players in the world, you can team up with them as you pillage villages, raid bandits, and fight supernatural beasts together. The game's going to feature a day-night cycle. During the daytime, you'll need to stick to the shadows, since exposure to the sun will actually turn you into ashes, while at night, your strength will grow as you prey on enemies in the darkness and you're harder to see. You'll have to basically manage your bloodthirst as a vampire and try to strategically plan around each day-night cycle. Now, one of the main goals in the game will be the process of raising up your castle. You'll gather resources and unlock ancient techniques to gain these dark powers, which will let you build a castle where you can store your loot and grow an army. You'll be able to personalize your castle with various vampiric styles, and you'll have to fortify it against the threat of other players, which brings us into the fact that the game has both competitive and cooperative elements. So like I said, you're able to play solo, but if you team up with others, it's going to give you an advantage when you're battling some of the game's strongest creatures or fighting other players. And they even have this raiding of enemy vampire castles as a core element of the game. So V Rising finally has this skill-based combat system. This also plays into some of the developers' prior work and their strengths. You're going to have access to an arsenal of weapons and unholy abilities, and all of this will reward skillful play. You'll have to aim skill shots and dodge projectiles using this precise WASD control scheme and cursor-based aiming. There's no click to move here. You'll also be able to tailor your playstyle by combining various melee and range weapons, as well as having access to a variety of spell kits. So we've got a vampire-themed survival game set in an open world with a day-night cycle, castle building, cooperative and PvP play, and skill-based combat. That is more or less kind of what we knew when this game was first revealed. Now, since that time though, we have gotten numerous updates from the developer's official website, many of which go into some pretty fine detail on various aspects of the game's features, systems, gameplay, and more. And then also recently, we got a few minutes of gameplay footage, much of which you have seen at this point in the video, and that's kind of showing us a lot of this stuff in action. Now, all of this stuff together, combined with the studio making the game, is what really has me excited for V Rising, even in these early stages. We haven't seen a lot. We know the basic fundamentals, and we're still far away from the full release, as there's still a beta and early access planned. But I am genuinely interested for all of those reasons. So what I want to do in this video is cover everything that we've learned since that original release, going into the various videos, the screenshots, and the blog posts and other official sources, and kind of give you guys a overview and some more details about this game beyond the basics that we've covered so far. I didn't realize that I wanted an open world vampire survival game, but Apparently, it looks like I do. Okay, so first and foremost, let's talk a little bit about the developer. Beyond the basics that we've covered, this is one of the main reasons I am interested in this game. V Rising is again being developed by Stunlock Studios. They are probably best known for their 2016 release of Battlerite, a free-to-play action arena brawler. Now, when this game first came out, it grew quite a devoted fan base very quickly, and it did seem like it was primed to be like a big esports title. But for a variety of reasons, the game never actually fully took off to see any long-term success, even though to this day it is still considered quite a good game. Now, a couple of years later, after the release of Battlerite, they developed and published a Battle Royale spin-off called Battlerite Royale, which I personally really enjoyed, even more so than Battlerite. I thought their BR spin-off was a hell of a lot of fun, and the game also reviewed quite well, but just like base Battlerite, Battlerite Royale never really ended up gaining traction. Now, although neither of these games have seen long-term success, and both of them have fairly dwindling player bases at this point, I need to drive home the fact that these are both considered, according to most people who played them, genuinely good games. If you look at the Steam reviews, if you look at critic reviews, across the board, they both scored very well. And I think specifically one of the things that I really need to hone in here is that this developer knows how to make good gameplay, really. Both Battlerite and Battlerite Royale just were fantastically polished, engaging, and fun games to play, which is the primary reason that I am so interested in V Rising. If they can take that quality, engaging gameplay that they've made in their prior titles and put that in this vampire-themed survival PvPvE experience, I think they could have a winning formula on their hands. So hopefully they've learned from some of their past releases and can deliver on something that not only further proves that they can make games that are fun to play, but also has people sticking around for more than a short period of time. Okay, so that's the developer. Let's talk a little bit about the developer updates and some more specifics about the game. So the very first blog post that they released coincided with the original trailer reveal that happened on May the 5th. And this was pretty bare in terms of information. It was mostly just announcing the game, covering the basics, and saying that it's their most ambitious title yet, which I don't know what that means. Ambitious how? Scope, scale, quality? Again, really vague stuff. However, they followed this up shortly after with a developer update and Q&A, and this is where we start to get some really interesting details. So they start off this post by saying that after over 10 years of working on arena games, of course there's Battlerite and Battlerite Royale, but they had worked on Bloodline Champions and Dead Island Epidemic. They decided they wanted to create something a little bit different but still played onto their strengths. And the idea that stuck the most with them was one for this vampire fantasy where players would fight for power while trying to survive in like this dark gothic world full of different conflicting things, which brings us to today and brings us to V Rising. And then they go into this fairly lengthy Q&A, and that's what we're going to take a look at here. So first off, just answering the basic question of V Rising, here's a synopsis directly from them. They say that V Rising is a vampire survival game for PC, played out in a gothic open world containing a mix of exploration, building, crafting, and action-packed combat. You'll rise from your coffin as a newly awakened vampire, stripped of all former powers, and you'll then have to fight for survival and strive to dominate the land of the living. So you can play solo or create a clan with up to 3 friends as you build your castle, hunt for blood in nearby villages, and wage war against enemy players. The world of V Rising is going to be inhabited by both NPCs and real players, offering a mix of PvP and PvE challenges, and you'll have to power up your character by obtaining these unholy abilities, crafting armor and weapons, and you'll also have to strengthen your castle from the threat of other players. In terms of how this game is related to Battlerite, they say that V Rising is a new franchise, never before seen. It's not related to Battlerite directly in terms of its setting or its lore. However, V Rising's fighting style is certainly inspired by Battlerite's skill-based combat, they say. Aiming and dodging with WASD input is a crucial element of it. Now, in terms of like, does that mean this is identical to Battlerite's combat? They say no, it's kind of more like comparing apples and pears. So you'll craft weapons and learn an array of spell kits with unique traits, kind of like Battlerite champion abilities. You can tailor your playstyle by combining weapons and spell kits to your liking. They say there's going to be weapon swapping plus various items that you can use, and you'll have to drink the right type of blood before heading into battle. A strategy strategy is definitely going to play a more significant role as the environment and PvE threats are going to impact combat. And then they laid out this scenario here of something that could potentially happen. They say, imagine you're fighting another player in the forest and then suddenly the sun rises, forcing you to try to battle in the shadows. The fight is really close and then you hit a tree. This knocks the tree down and further hurts the opponent by exposing them to the sun, burning them and killing them. There's going to be a lot of dynamic elements to combat in this game against other players because it is set in this open world, and all sorts of dynamic things can happen. Now, when talking about the top-down perspective, they say that the camera is similar to their previous games, but with a few modifications. It is slightly more tilted, and it can be rotated at a 360-degree angle, so this is going to give people more camera freedom and a better perspective while navigating the open world environment. Now, in terms of the blood system, this is a really cool feature in this game. You need blood to survive. You're going to have to constantly be feeding on blood, so you'll attack humans and drink their blood, and you can finish them off as well if you want. But there's also going to be different blood types, and each of them are going to have their own perks. So for example, fresh warrior blood will improve your physical damage, rogue blood will improve movement speed, scholar blood will improve your magic damage. There's also going to be like worker blood, which will be good to use if you're going to be out there gathering resources. I'm assuming it's just going to increase like your gathering speed or something like that. So this blood system is a really, really cool twist. It's actually something that we saw in another recent game. What is it called? Blood Hunt? Vampire Masquerade Blood Hunt. Yeah, they also had this thing where different types of blood gave you different perks. I think that's a neat idea for a vampire game, and it's cool to see that it's going to be here in V Rising. There are going to be vampire servants in the game as well, so they said this is currently in the works, but at the moment, what'll happen is you can hunt down and convert human warriors, archers, and mages. This army that you build up will be actively protecting your castle, but can also be used to do your bidding in various aspects. Not a lot of details here. They touched a little bit on how the day-night cycle is going to work, so they say daytime has a significant impact on the gameplay since exposure to direct sunlight does harm you, and then later on in the game, you're going to learn how to craft gear and items to improve your sun resistance, allowing you to go out more freely into the sun. They also say that humans have a harder time seeing you in the dark, which gives you an advantage when hunting at night, and that there's also going to be particular beasts who will only roam the world after dusk and other specific events connected to the day-night cycle. Really like their use of this, and again, I think it plays perfectly into the vampire theming. They don't just have an open world with vampires walking around, they have a lot of vampire lore-related things taking place here. In an answer to the question as to how competitive this game is, they say it's not the same type of competition as Battlerite, obviously, because that is an arena-based game, but it is going to be competitive because it mixes PvP and PvE. So they're going to be taking advantage from their experience in creating these arena games to develop an open world survival game where you will have to deal with other players in the environment. They also said that a lot of their inspiration comes from various action RPGs and survival games. They say that they haven't nailed down the specifics as to how many vampires will be in a server, but they are going to be aiming for at least 50 castles per server, with each castle supporting multiple players, presumably. In terms of how servers will work, they say that their vision is to allow players to host private servers with the possibility to choose to play solo or co-op in a less competitive environment, or to go on like a full war mode PvP server. They're also going to be looking into having support for public servers that will be hosted by trusted partners. Asked about loading screens as you move between the different areas of the world, their answer was that except for the starting zone, V Rising will offer a seamless world that you can freely move between the different areas and regions. Love that. Love these open connected worlds without loading screens in between every area. And they briefly mentioned here that horseback and horse riding is a thing, which we did see in the gameplay trailer that they recently released, so that's really cool. In terms of like the win condition, basically what they say here is that V Rising is sort of like a King of the Hill game with survival elements where you try to become the supreme vampire. And they say if you become the kingdom's most powerful vampire, you're basically gonna have to fight off other invaders to keep your claim of the throne and stay on top of the food chain. So fighting side by side with friends is going to give you an advantage in your battle against the strongest creatures and the other players trying to dethrone you, or obviously you'll have to group up to go after the king vampire. I'm not sure what exactly this means. It would be cool if like the king vampire on any server had their own unique strengths, and they required like multiple attacks from multiple enemies. I think thematically that's really cool. I don't know, balance wise, that could be a bit of a nightmare. When asked about whether or not werewolves were going to be in this game, the answer was yes. And then also asked about character creation, they said yes, you are going to be able to make your very own vampire with your own customization and different face models and hairstyles and things like that. So this was really the big honking update out of all of the blog posts we've seen that's kind of given the most details about the game. There were some additional, about like 3 or 4 follow-up developer update blog posts, and these go into some more detail about the game's art, its lore. There's one post that talks a bit about the engine and the various type of tech that they're using, as well as some interviews with members of the development team. But really, this update that I just covered, this Q&A, this is where most of the interesting bits of game-related details came from. Now, we also got some information about the upcoming release, platforms, and pricing. In terms of when this game's coming out, there is no set release date at the moment. They are planning, however, to do a closed beta followed by an early access release. Now, closed beta is planned still, from what I saw, to come out later this year. You can register for this on their official website. I'm guessing in that case that early access will happen sometime next year. And in terms of platforms, V Rising is going to be a premium PC game, so it is going to have a base price. They've got no plans to make a free-to-play version of this, and the early access pricing is going to be announced as they get closer to its release. So that is essentially the bulk of what we know about this game. I know that we only have a cinematic trailer and about 2 minutes of gameplay footage, but with all the different screenshots and all of these details from the Q&A and the Steam page and their official website, this is looking and sounding really, really interesting. Also, this stuff combined with the developer and their past work in mind, I do expect that V Rising will feel great to play. And the game does have a really neat premise. A vampire survival game in a gothic open world that mixes exploration, building, crafting, skill-based combat. You start off as a vampire with no powers. You have to fight and get stronger by unlocking abilities, crafting armor and weapons. There's solo and group play, PvP and PvE. There's a base management system. There's a King of the Hill style server based thing where there's like a supreme vampire. It's cool, dude. It really, really sounds cool. So hopefully they have taken the right lessons. I really liked specifically Battlerite Royale. I played the most. I know Battlerite is like the more popular of the two games, but I really liked Battlerite Royale. It felt super good to play. I just thought the presentation too was also good, like their art style and everything. And everything I'm seeing about V Rising looks really exciting, which is why I'm making this video. I think it has a lot of potentially. So I'm going to keep my eye on this, and hopefully we get to play it later this year. Again, I know they said that the closed beta is still planned for this year, but either way, I think this is a cool looking game. I think it has a lot of potential. That's why we're making this video here. And yeah, there you go. That's everything you need to know and everything we know so far about V Rising. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this little update, and stay tuned. I'm sure I'll make some more videos and talk a bit more about this game in the future. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.